Alright, greetings everybody. Hopefully you have your note-taking guide by your side and you're ready to learn a little bit about how to teach with discussion. First, let's think about why it's important to have students talk to each other. At its core, participating in discussion helps prepare our students to become engaged in our democratic society. As citizens, they should, and hopefully will, have the skills they need to dissent when they disagree, to talk about or discuss controversial or important issues with their neighbors, families, friends, and or debate the quality of particular policies, laws that are going to be passed. However, if you're not so interested in the civic reasons why discussion is important, there are three very important academic reasons why we should engage our students in discussion. First, participating in discussion provides opportunities for students to practice fundamental critical thinking skills that can help them across disciplines and also outside of school. Second, research shows that when students participate in a discussion prior to beginning a writing assignment, the quality of their writing increases exponentially. So we can help develop our students' writing skills. And finally, participating in a discussion increases the likelihood that students are going to retain the what new information they've learned, what they have been talking about. As you can see here from this graphic, participating in a discussion, research shows that 70% of what we say we'll remember. So we also need to be very cognizant of what discussion is not. It's not an argument. A lot of times when you hear we're going to have a discussion in class, you might picture this: people screaming, getting angry, not listening to each other. That's not what discussion is in our classrooms, or not what it should be. It's also not question and answer drills. It is not you standing at the front of the classroom asking questions with one student raising their hand to answer you. Even though the kids in this picture seem to be semi-engaged, it is more likely that you will see this during question and answer drills, so they should be avoided at all costs. So, what is discussion? It's talking about something in a way in order to solve a problem, reach a decision, or simply to hear other people's ideas. Four things that teachers need to think about as they begin to integrate discussion into their instruction is why they're having a discussion, the purpose, which discussion model best aligns with their purpose, what they need to think about in order to get ready, and how they get their students ready, and then what they're going to do with their students after the discussion to help the kids process what they've learned. On the top here, you'll see there's two prepositions: teaching for discussion and teaching with discussion. So there's two things we need to think about. The teaching for discussion is we need to think about what skills we might need to teach our students and let them practice so they can engage in quality discussions. Teaching with discussion is when we're using discussion to help kids learn content. And this can be going on at the same time, but we got to be aware of the two different goals that we should have in mind. Number one thing you need to do is to set ground rules with your students, just like we did the other day in class through the crumpled paper discussion. Ground rules are fundamental to have in your classroom if you're going to have discussions. Then we need to think about what our purpose is. And as you can see here, there's lots of different purposes for having a discussion. Solving a problem, clarifying your own thinking sometimes can come as a result of engaging in discussion with other people's. Understanding something at a deeper level, appreciating different perspectives, and learning how to take a position and support it are all fundamental purposes for having a discussion. So when you as an educator are thinking about integrating a discussion in your classroom, you need to think about what's the purpose of this discussion. At the end of this discussion, should my students be able to solve this problem? Should my students be able to explain multiple perspectives on a problem? You get the idea. So you want to be very clear about what the purpose is. Once you've figured out that, you need to think, which discussion model should I use that's best aligned with my purpose? One caveat to this is that always, 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 always start with small groups and then move to whole class. You can, over time, with your students over the course of a semester or a year, build enough community where you could start with a whole class discussion where, the typical image we have of everybody sitting in a circle and talking about things. But if you try to start there, it's going to fall flat. So everything we do is going to start small group and then go back to whole class or large group. These are some of the purposes we talked about, right? For why we would have discussions. There's lots of different models, and as we practice them over the course of the semester, I'm going to ask you to add them to this chart here so that you'll have different models you can use with each purpose. So for example, we did a crumpled paper discussion as a way to help you clarify your thinking about what you hate and what you love about classroom-based discussions, and also help provide an opportunity for you to see other people's perspective on that same topic. So crumpled paper can be something you can use with your students to help them clarify their own thinking and also understand other people's perspectives. So you want to hold on to your chart here because, like I said, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to be adding lots of different models to this chart that will help you decide how to structure a discussion depending on your purpose and your learning goals for your students. Next, teachers need to think about what they need to do to get prepared. So you've identified your purpose, you've selected a model, now it's time for you to get ready. There's 3 things you need to think about. How are you going to frame the issue so that it's important and meaningful and or controversial, engaging for your students? What common quote-unquote texts are students going to have to draw upon during their discussion? And you need to plan some really good questions in order to keep the discussion going or to have the students be thoughtful about what they're discussing with their partners. Okay, so selecting issues. 4 things to think about. Number 1, of course, is what are your students interested in? If they're not interested, they are not going to engage in a meaningful way in talking really about anything you ask them to talk about. What background knowledge do they have? The relevance of what you're asking them to discuss to their own lives and also to the broader society. So it takes some time to uncover an issue that's meaningful and relevant and connected to your content standards. However, it can be done. Secondly, you need to think about what common texts students are going to have. So when we say text, we don't necessarily just mean printed texts such as books, primary sources, articles. It can also mean the students all had an opportunity to view some short film. And so you're going to ask them some questions to discuss something they've seen in the film. Or it might be after they've participated in a role play or simulation, there's going to be a discussion. So text is a variable word that doesn't necessarily always mean printed material. It means some common experience or set of information that all the students have access to that they can use during the discussion to make or defend positions that they might take. The big one. Good questions. Good questions are huge. If we don't ask the right question at the right time in the right way, we can shut down students or make it sort of impossible for some of them to want to participate. So we're actually going to spend a whole nother screencast just on the art of preparing good questions for discussion. So just hold on to that for now because we're going to come back to good questions. When we're preparing, we also need to think about how we're going to help students prepare for participating in discussion. It's not going to look like this right away, with everybody engaged, sitting around the table, taking notes, making eye contact, listening to each other. We need to think about how we're going to teach students these skills they need to be active and meaningful participants in a discussion. So that you see there's 6 fundamental skills that are important for students to have. Help them prepare. You're not going to try and do all of these all at once. So after you've been with your students for a while and you notice patterns, perhaps the first one you want them to focus on practicing is just literally their body language, watching, giving their eyes to the speaker, facing the speaker might be it. Or maybe they're really good at that, and what they need to do is learn how to build on each other's comments. What you're going to do, though, is based on who your students are and where you think they need areas of growth, you're going to pick one of these 6 to be your focus to help them develop their skills. Okay, so we've had a purpose, we picked a model, our students were engaged, we practiced, we're done talking. Now what? You want to do 2 things after each discussion. Process. Have some way for students to reflect on how they participated in their group's discussion and what areas of improvement might be. So that might be as simple as giving them that chart that you saw on the previous slide and asking them to think about, just pick one area that they think they did a great job and another area that they'd like to improve on. And then secondly, they need to create something or do something that will provide them a way to make sense of all the ideas that they heard, talked about, argued about during that discussion with their classmates. So discussion doesn't just end, it's over. When the talking stops, the creating and reflection should begin. Okay, so that's a brief overview for how to think about teaching with discussion. Like I said, you're going to be introduced to a lot more different discussion models over the course of the semester. So keep your chart handy and put these notes into your interactive notebook.